In 62 days, I traveled over 11,000 miles, visited 13 cities in 5 countries, earned 6 college credits, spoke 3 languages, carried 2 pieces of luggage, and had 1 experience of a lifetime. Welcome back to Curious Kellen. My name is Kellen, and this is my journey through Europe. My journey through Europe was a life-changing experience, and it took a lot of time, money, and of course support from my friends and family to make happen. But the first step of it all was to get there. All right, so we are on the freeway right now. I've got my bags packed in the back, and I've got my backpack, and we're getting ready to go here. I've got everybody else in the car with me. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
And yeah, thank you. And then way out over there, I don't know if you can see, but the U is just out over there. So yeah, next time I'll see you is gonna be in the airport or on the plane. So I'll see you then. Just got on the airplane. I actually ended up meeting up with some of the other people that are going on the study abroad program. There were 2 other students that are actually taking this exact same flight because we're all responsible for getting our own flight here. So it is currently about 10:40 Germany time, so I'm hopefully going to get some shut-eye on this flight. And yeah, I'll be seeing you in Amsterdam. I just landed in the Schiphol airport in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. We have a connecting flight over into Hamburg, Germany, before we take a bus over to Kiel. Yeah, it shouldn't be too long of a flight now. I was able to get some sleep on the last plane, even though it was not very easy. So yeah, hopefully I'm feeling a little bit more locked into the local time. Off to Hamburg. Ich bin gerade in Hamburg angekommen. Also ja, ich bin sehr begeistert. Und als nächstes fahren wir mit dem Bus nach Kiel. Das dauert circa 2 Stunden, ich glaube. Also ja, wir holen unsere Gepäck ab und dann finden wir den Bus und fahren wir nach Kiel. All in all, it was a long travel day. So I had left on May 24th and arrived on May 25th. And getting to my host family's house was such a blessing because all I needed in that moment was to sit down in my room and relax for a little bit. Der Zimmer sieht sehr schön auch. Also ja, ich packe jetzt auf und ja, ich werde hier für vielleicht einen Monat bleiben. Well, that was one crazy travel day. And lucky enough for us, we had a long weekend to get accustomed to the 8-hour time shift, which was really, really nice. But after that, we were going full steam ahead right into our classes. So the group consisted of 10 students from the University of Utah and 1 professor from the University of Utah. 7 of us were taking upper division courses that discussed things like geography, literature, and some culture. And then the other 3 students were taking courses for 3rd and 4th semester German. Now, our classes went from 9 a.m. to 11:45, and then we had lunch until 1 p.m., and then classes again until about 3:45. So we were spending around 6 hours every single day in the classroom for usually 4 days a week. Outside of class though, our group had built a pretty strong connection, so we would go and grab dinner or just hang out, and a lot of the times we would do that with our professors as well. So when it all came down to the end, at the very end of the program, we were really sad to say goodbye to each other. Of course, we all go to the University of Utah, so we would probably see each other here and there, but we knew that we would never really see each other in this way again. Now, although our time in the classroom was important, the real essence of the program was what we did outside of the classroom with the excursions. We visited many places. One of the first things we did was actually a professional tour of the city that we were staying in, Kiel, Germany. So we toured there. We also visited 2 reconstructed villages. One of them was of a typical northern Germany settlement, and then one of them was actually from a Viking settlement that had been reconstructed. We also visited some cities. We visited Lübeck, we visited Hamburg, and of course we visited Berlin. Now, all of these places were culturally interesting and fascinating in their own way, but there was nothing more exciting and exhausting than our trip to Berlin. In the 4 days that we were there, we visited so many museums, we saw so many monuments, saw so many churches, so many sights to see there. And we toured the city on foot the very first day we got there, right after a long 4-hour train ride. We had lunch really quick, and then we walked through what felt like the entire city. Now, one of my most exciting experiences in Berlin didn't have anything to do with history or academics, but more with dancing and techno music. So while we were there on the last night, I got together with a group of friends from our group, and we went and visited a German club. Now, it was my first time ever going to a techno club, and it was a crazy experience. It was dark in there, people were dancing, everyone was dancing. I'm sorry I don't have any footage to show of it, because when you walked in, they actually put stickers over your camera so that you couldn't use your camera to take videos and stuff of what was going on inside. It was insane. We loved it. It was an amazing experience for me. We loved it so much that we stayed until 4 a.m. in spite of our early train ride back home the next morning. And whenever I think of Berlin, I will always think back to this moment and how much fun it was. Now, of all the things that we did on our program, one of the most standout events was Kieler Woche. Now, Kieler Woche just means Kiel Week in English, but Kiel is about the same size of Salt Lake City, at least population-wise, but it's about half the area. So it's a little bit more dense than Salt Lake City, but it's nowhere near as dense as someplace like Berlin, New York City, or Paris. But when 3.8 million visitors come to Kiel, it feels like the city just changes overnight. Now, sailing is the quote-unquote main event of Kieler Woche. So you have sailboats coming in from all over the world to participate in a variety of sailing events, a lot of races and parades and things like that within the Kiel Fjord and the Baltic Sea. That being said, there is a lot of stuff to do on land. There are silent discos, there are concerts, there are food trucks, there is an international market. Now, this time was super exciting. I went down there a couple times to the main area where everything was happening. I went there a couple days within that week, and throughout that whole time we actually still had class. So it was a lot to do in just a single week, but wow, it was amazing. So if you ever end up getting to Kiel, make sure you go during Kieler Woche. The best part of my time in Germany was my host family. There is nothing more educational, immersive, or emotionally investing than staying with the host family during your study abroad. So what I learned in class was super important, and I learned a lot also from just being out in the public and talking to strangers and buying coffee and things like that. But when you actually are living with the host family, you have somebody who is always there to help explain a word or correct you when you say something wrong, and they're also constantly speaking German. And not only with me, so my host family spoke, I would say 95% of the time in German with me. If I really was struggling, we would maybe use some English to clarify things. But they're speaking in German to me, but also among each other. So I am hearing German the way that it's spoken in the home, not the way that it's spoken on TV or for the news, but the way that real Germans are speaking German at home. What I learned from them educationally and within the language was really important, but I would also say that the emotional support and the connection that I made with my host family was equally important, if not more. Having somebody to be there for me and to talk to about my experiences and some of my anxieties was really, really important to me, and it was very special. Eating meals together, going on walks, riding bikes, talking with each other, and even just sitting in the same room as each other for a little bit of time helps build up a genuine bond with your host family. And I am so, so grateful for the connection that I have with my host family, and I'm grateful that they offered up their home to me for me to stay with them. I actually stayed a week longer than I was supposed to because I was going to be meeting up with my mom later, so they were super, super kind, and I'm still in communication with them today, and I hope that one day they will actually come visit me. After 6 weeks of staying in Germany, I met up with my mom on July 7th in Amsterdam in the Netherlands for another 2.5 weeks of travel. Now, looking back, I cannot believe that this was only 2 weeks because it genuinely feels like we traveled for another month after I met up with my mom because we packed so much into so little time. But what we did from Amsterdam is we moved down into Antwerp in Belgium. We took a train there. And trains, by the way, are amazing in Europe. It really shows just how bad of a public transportation system we have in the US. But from Antwerp, we went to Ghent and then to Bruges, also 2 cities in Belgium. And then we came back to Ghent before going down to Lille in France. Now, we happened to be in Lille on Bastille Day, and this was totally unplanned. Bastille Day, by the way, is essentially the 4th of July for France. It's a little bit different, but a lot of the same stuff. They have fireworks, things like that. So we get there, and we're trying to go to museums and stuff, and everything's closed, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And then we randomly bump into this military/first responder parade, and we realize that we're here on Bastille Day. It was totally unplanned, but it was super awesome to see. We saw some amazing fireworks there. But then after that, we went down to Paris. And our hotel room had a wonderful view of the Eiffel Tower. And once we got there, I actually got to meet up with a friend from here in Utah that I've known for a very, very long time. He was actually doing a study abroad in Paris. So we got to meet up, walk around. I met some of the friends that he had made there. It was great. Later on, my mom and I did a tour of the Eiffel Tower. And then we also did a small river tour/cruise that was on the Seine. And that same night, I ended up taking my mom out to a nice French dinner, just as thank you for her paying for a lot of the stuff in the second half of the trip and for planning it and all those things. It was a lovely dinner, and I got the chance to finally wear my nice suit jacket that I had packed and hadn't worn the whole trip, so it was a great opportunity for that. From there, we went to our last city on our list, which is Barcelona, Spain, and we spent a couple days there. We had a nice little beach day on one day, we did a bus tour around the city, and we also visited the Sagrada Familia, which is this amazing basilica. It is incredibly beautiful. It's still being built right now, so it's under construction, but it's a fantastic experience, and I would definitely recommend going there if you go to Barcelona. On the 24th of July, I hopped on a plane and came back home. My mom stayed there in Europe actually for about another, I think it was about a week and a half. She went to Sweden to stay there for a little bit and also meet up with a friend before she herself came back home. After 2 months of traveling in Europe, I think it's safe to say that I have changed a little bit upon my return. One of the main things that has changed is that I ride my bike a lot more. My host family was kind enough to let me borrow a bike while I was there in Germany, and I rode my bike almost every single day. I would ride it to school, I would ride it into the city, down to the fjord, wherever. Riding bikes in Germany, especially where I was, it's just a completely commonplace thing. A lot of people get around on bikes, and there's a lot more appreciation and understanding and culture, as well as infrastructure, like on the streets and things, that support riding bikes. Now that I'm home, I've been riding my bike to the track station every day of the week to get to work on time. The concept of what is within biking distance is so much larger in Germany. It made me realize like a lot of things here are within a biking distance. Another thing that has changed is I feel like I'm a little bit more environmentally conscious. Now, I would say I was fairly environmentally conscious before I left. I think that global warming is a huge problem, and also here we just don't deal with the environment as well as we should. In Germany, they deal with their trash so much better. There's a much better separation system, things going into the right bins, also just in Europe in general. And there's more of a public support for that. So it feels like that's just more of what the public is shooting for and trying for. And so I've been trying to buy less things I don't need, be better at recycling, and I'm also trying to eat less meat, which brings me to the next thing, that I am cooking a lot more. My host family cooked all the time, and so when I got back home, I broke out some of our old recipe books, and these past 3 weeks I've just been going through them, and I've been cooking 3 meals every week for my family, and it's been great. There's been some really good stuff that's come out of there, and I just enjoy cooking for myself. It feels good to cook for yourself in that way. Although I did experience a lot of change and growth from my trip, I also feel like I have more of an appreciation for some things at home. One of those things being able to get a driver's license. In Germany, it's much more difficult to get a driver's license. You get it at an older age, and it costs a lot more to get a driver's license than here in the US. Another thing is Mexican food and Latin American food. That doesn't really exist in Europe. I really miss the taste of authentic Mexican and Latin American food here, and so I gained much stronger appreciation for that coming back. One of the most important things that I learned to appreciate was me being raised as a native English speaker. In Europe, I tried as much as I could to speak in the native languages of the people. So when I was in Germany, I was speaking as much German as I could. When I was in France, I was speaking French. And when I was in Spain, I was speaking Spanish. And there was a lot of times where if I didn't speak those languages, I wouldn't have been able to communicate with people. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people in Europe who do speak English, and you get to see just how important English is in the global world. And being raised in an environment where I learned that language firsthand and I'm a native speaker of it, made me appreciate how important of a tool that actually is in my life. I do think there are some negative aspects to this perception of English, especially here in the US. There's a lot of lauding of the English language as a great language, and then a lot of hostility towards foreign language. And I don't really like that kind of culture here in the US. But I did end up growing an appreciation for being a native English speaker. If you yourself are thinking about going on a study abroad program, here are some recommendations that I have. Number 1, pack light. I ended up traveling with 1 suitcase and 1 backpack, and even then I definitely could have packed less. Think about taking a 7-hour travel day with your current packing plans, getting on and off trains, going into subway stations, up and down stairs, putting your stuff in overhead compartments, dragging it along cobblestones. If you imagine that kind of a situation and think about your current plans and what you currently have packed, and you don't think that you can do that all by yourself, then you definitely need to change your packing plans. The second thing that I recommend is getting access to maps. So if you are going somewhere, I would recommend downloading the offline version of the map off of Google Maps so that you can look up things and know where things are if there's no access to Wi-Fi or data. And then a lot of times I would actually recommend grabbing a physical map. So you can get these at train stations or airports. You just say, hey, do you have a city plan that I can have? It's really super helpful because you're going to be walking around a lot and you need to know where you are and where you're going. And a lot of the times you won't have access to Wi-Fi, and if you don't want to pay for mobile data roaming fees, then having it downloaded on your phone or having a physical map is a really good idea. The third thing that I would recommend is learn the language. If you are going somewhere, it's really important that you learn at least the basics in the language, especially if you're going to like a smaller town that isn't so metropolitan. You're going to find less English speakers there, so knowing the basics is really important. You can buy little booklets that have kind of that most important information in it and, you know, work through that language barrier. If you're going, like I did, with the specific intent to learn the language, then really go for it 100%. You should always be insisting that you're speaking in the native language that you're going there for. Don't use English as a crutch. There may be times where it would be faster or easier, or you're tired and just don't want to just speak in English, but don't do that because then you're not gonna grow. You should always be saying, hey, I came here, I paid the money to be here, I want to learn the language, let's not speak in English. So stick with it, it's really worth it. The last thing that I would recommend is that you live in the moment. On this trip, I really opened my eyes to see just how obsessed people are with their phones and their digital image. I experienced this particularly when my mom and I were visiting the Sagrada Familia Basilica in Barcelona, Spain. There were so many beautiful things there, these excellent stained glass windows. The architecture was fantastic, and just the feeling there was really impressive as well. But I felt like I saw more people concerned with taking photos of themselves and kind of documenting that they were there than actually be there and experience the beauty of this building. And so I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't take photos or that you shouldn't take videos. I mean, this video wouldn't exist without me doing that. So I actually encourage that you do that, but also don't forget to take a moment and step back and go, hang on a minute, I really just need to experience this. Let me put my phone away and stand here and go, wow, I am really here. I'm actually here in Europe. I'm really experiencing this in this moment, and I am so happy that I am. So my time in Europe was an amazing experience, and I know that one day I definitely want to get back there. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I may go back to the University of Kiel to study there as an actual exchange student for a semester or maybe even a full academic year. I may do another summer study abroad program in a different country, or maybe I'll just do some personal travel. I'm not really sure. Either way, I know I want to go back at some point, especially to Germany. I love the language and the culture, and I just feel like I have so much to gain by actually being there and being in person and engaging with people. For now though, I'm just going to work hard in my fall semester courses back at the U and enjoy my time back at home. So I hope that you have enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about my trip in Europe. I hope that you have learned a little bit more and that you're maybe excited or inspired to now go on a study abroad adventure of your own. Thank you so much for watching. This is Curious Kellen, and I'll see you in the next one.